we have a lot to talk about, and we're 36 seconds in. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since I've done a reaction, but here I am today with another Jethro Tull reaction. If you're new here, hi, my name is Katie and I'm a flute player. I do covers of video game, TV, anime, and film music. And if all of that sounds interesting, there'll be a link in the description of above as well as and below where you can find all my music videos and links to where you can stream my music. I also have a new EP coming out on February 11th of all original music, but is loosely based on Avatar: The Last Airbender. Make sure you check in the description below where you can either pre-save it or stream it depending on when you see this. Like I said, it'll be out February 11th, 2022, and I'm really excited about some original music. But that's not what we're here for today. Today we're doing another Jethro Tull reaction. This was highly requested on my community post. I've been trying to post there about what kind of reactions you want to see, and Jethro Tull kind of won that particular vote. So here we're going to be reacting to Roots to Branches live. This was posted in December of 2008. There was no information in the description as to when this was recorded or when the performance was, but all I know is this is Roots to Branches live, and yeah, I'm excited to dive it in, so let's get to it. How I typically do my reactions, we'll watch the video in full, I'll give some initial commentary and thoughts over it at first, and then we'll go back in and we'll do a deep dive analysis of the song, so let's go. I'm digging the groove already. It's like spooky and mysterious. Ooh. Oh, that's some smooth playing. I'm digging it so far.
Words get written, words get twisted, all meanings move in the drift of time. Lift the flickering torches, see gentle shadows change.
So this is like half live performance, half music video? I really like that. That's really cool.
Roots down in the wet clay, branches glistening. True disciples carrying that message to color just a little with their personal touch.
Yeah. So I definitely think this is like later in the career.
Naked unbelievers, crusades and creeds descend like fiery flakes of stone. Bad mouth on a Friday, hope no one's listening. Roots down in the wet clay, branches glistening. Roots to branches, roots to branches, roots to branches.
Oh, this is it's such a cool vibe. Oh, and that synergy of the guitar and keyboards. Oh, so well done.
In wet and windy priest holes, grand and cathedrals, high on lofty minarets, or in the temples of doom. I think the old man's got his face on. He'd better be some quick change artist.
And the bass player just looks so relaxed and chill. I love it. And how he's quickly going back from vocal to playing is so good. It's like perfectly timed. It just has such a good groove. Yay, flute solo time. That was fantastic. I loved the beats. Like, it just had a really cool, chill vibe. I like how, like, the flute playing was interspersed. I think Jethro Tull does a really good job of, like, and, like, yes, I'm a flute player in a rock band, but it's never done, like, ironically. It's just so perfectly musically tasteful, of like interspersed here and there, and with like the very chill laid back vibe of the whole thing, that like his flute playing is just such a nice embellishment. Like, the song would be great without the flute playing, but the flute playing really takes it to the next level, I think, and kind of just gives it something interesting to listen to, and kind of is a nod to like the classic, like the classical stuff. It's a nod to like the bardic days, which, you know, a lot of people refer to Jethro Tull as like, you know, a rock bard, and I wholeheartedly agree with that, and it's just so beautifully done. Yeah, I just really like, there's not much to like say. It's really good and so perfectly executed. And I really like, this is a live video, but whoever did the editing like did a live but also music video-esque stuff to it, which I really like. That's a really interesting way of doing it. Normally it's either a fully produced music video or it's like a full live video, which might have a couple of different camera angles, but this one merged it, and I really like that. So yeah, let's dive into it. Before I do that, what I do want to say is, typically, because I watch the video in full without really pausing, I do tend to get copyright claimed on my reaction videos, which means I don't make any money doing this. I'm doing it for the fun and to listen to new music. If this kind of content interests you, please consider becoming a patron over on patreon.com/Katie Shesko, or becoming a channel member. That just helps support me and my content and would make me able to do more reactions. Patrons and channel members at the $5 and up tier will get a copy of my EP, and if you donate at the $10 tier and up, or make a one-time donation of $10, you will receive an autographed copy of the album art of Elemental Journey right now. So yeah, this is just a great way to support me and this content, and if you want to hear more of that. And so with that, now let's dive into the detailed analysis. So right off the bat, it's a very cool, chill vibe. It's got a cool bass line that I really like. All right, stop it right there. I was trying to find a good spot. So this is not a C flute. This is a wooden flute of some sort. There's so many cultures around the world that have a wooden flute similar to this. Typically, how depending on the size is depending on how they are pitched. I own one, but I don't really play it. I don't really utilize it. I believe it's in D. It's like a whole different ball game. It doesn't have the same fingerings that you would have on a traditional C flute. I'm just going to refer to it as a C flute. That's the metal one. That's the one that I play. That's the one that you usually see him playing. So we're going to be comparing the wooden flute to the C flute in this. I don't typically, I don't play a wooden flute because the fingerings are different. It could be pitched in a scale that is not C, which means that if you wanted to play flute music, you would have to transpose it so that the pitch is actually lined up. It's very complicated. If you're interested in me explaining how that works, leave a comment below. That's a whole video in itself of how exactly that works. Point being that even though it is wooden and it has an embouchure hole similar to that of the C flute, and it is played off to the side with keys. Well, this particular one doesn't have any keys, but with finger holes, and it's very flute-like. It's different from the C flute, which is a whole nother challenge. It just shows like the range and breadth that he has as an instrumentalist. Playing these types of flutes, they're a little bit more temperamental. The history and evolution of the flute and why we see the keys the way they are, and there have been keys added even within recent years. I'm thinking about the C sharp trill key specifically, and the trill keys and the split E mechanism and the donut in some cases. All of these things have been added to the flute to give it a more even temperament, for ease of playing, to make certain registers sound better so that you don't have one register that is super sharp and one register that's super flat. Things like that. They were in some cases to make the flute louder, which in this instance is not really as big of an issue because modern day concerts, you're mic'd. It doesn't really matter how loud or soft your instrument is. You're mic'd and you have an audio guy who is, doing the mix on the fly, or who has your stuff set up so that, the guitar doesn't overpower, the flute doesn't overpower the keyboards, stuff like that. That wasn't as big of a concern. Back before like microphones were really being used in performances, how loud or soft an instrument was really made a big difference. So that being said, we have a lot to talk about, and we're 36 seconds in. It's a little bit more temperamental, and it's not as easy to play as a C flute. Trying to get into the upper registers requires a little bit more work, especially to keep it in the upper register. It's not too bad to play like the first octave or so. That's kind of like the home octave. At least that's how I think of it. The home octave of that particular instrument. That's not too bad. But once you start really jumping in the extra octaves, it takes a little bit more talent and finesse to really keep it where it needs. Well, I guess not just talent and finesse, but it takes practice and dedication to keep it in the octave that you want it to be. And to do all those octave jumps is not easy, especially because you have like cross fingerings and you have times when you want the hole partially opened. And so trying to do that quickly with fast finger movements, especially as we've seen later in the song of, some of the runs and quick notes that he was playing, that stuff's not easy. So again, this is just a testament to how well of a player Ian Anderson is, especially when it comes to flute, because this itself would have taken time to learn this particular flute and how this particular flute operates and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm impressed. And so we didn't really talk about on the outfits. They look very bardic. I love it. I think it really adds to this vibe. And considering this is a song about roots and branches and kind of that earthy quality, to kind of have that like bardic, old, like medieval feel to it, especially in their costumes. Of course, not fully medieval, but you know what I mean, not like modern dress. I love it. It's such an aesthetic that it's just comforting to me. It's very homey. So I love the aesthetic. And again, like I said at the end of the song, this song would have been a fantastic song without the flute playing. But the fact that Ian chose to use this wooden flute as opposed to a C flute. He could have used a C flute and I think it still would have been like really cool. I think, you have the bass song with like just the guitars, which you would have in a normal rock band, would have been great. Adding a C flute would have made it a little bit better. Really cool. It adds a really cool flair to it. But adding the wooden flute specifically with that really wooden rich tone that it has just really took you even further into the world of Jethro Tull and this very bardic rock progressive environment that they're trying to bring you in. And that's exactly what they did, and it works so well. They're bringing you into their sphere through their music and through their instrumental choices, and it really adds to it, and it turns out to be perfection. It's just so good.
Words get written, words get twisted, old meanings move in the drift of time.
And like, this is a very chill, like, it's just a very chill vibe to it. The words get written, the words get twisted. I don't usually delve too much into the lyrics, but like when you kind of have those repeated things, words get written, words get twisted, that's a very bardic quality, at least in my mind. It feels very poemy, and it feels very, I don't know, what's the word I'm going for? I don't know. I feel like it kind of transports you back in time to like singing songs around a campfire, if that makes sense. The lyrics aren't overly fantastical. They're not complicated. The rhythms are not difficult. This is stuff that you could sing by a campfire. This is stuff that you can hum really easily throughout the day. It's something that you could sing in your car. It's an easygoing song. Not to say that the song itself is easy to play, as we will hear later, Ian's virtuosic flute playing. The song itself has an easy quality to it, and that's comforting to humans. That's comforting to us as a collective, and it's just so well done.
See gentle shadows change, the features of the faces cut in unmoving stone.
I was mentioning before, I really like how this is a live performance, but whoever did this editing, and I don't know if this editing was done by this particular YouTuber or if this editing was done by Jethro Tull and they were re-uploading it. It's a really cool effect. It's a really cool way to blend that live with that music video feel to it. It's just really cool. I liked it. I like the kind of ghosty sea shanty quality of that last clip. It's just so cool. I like that, but I like that kind of aesthetic and I like that kind of stuff. And I really like how this section, it kind of picked up an energy really cool. And that's when the flute kind of came in and did some just really cool stuff. Like, that stuff is not easy. Like I said, kind of like, we'll hear it a little bit later. The lower register, he kind of plays a good bit in that. So kind of where he's at is like, that's the register that takes a little bit of work to make it sound really good and to keep it in the register that you want. It's really cool. It's really good. He just does a fantastic job. And I really, like I said, that could have been replicated on a guitar. And that's what makes Jethro Tull like unique, is that instead of just having a guitar in the rock sphere, they give it to a traditionally classical instrument. And you don't really see wooden flutes in the classical sphere very often either. You're going even further. You're going like back to Baroque era. You'll hear some Baroque performances where people will play with a Baroque flute, which is traditionally wooden, a little bit more the size of what a C flute is. This one's kind of tiny compared to like a Baroque flute, but then you'll kind of hear, you'll have that wooden flute quality to it. But like we're throwing all of that out, and it just works so well for Ian Anderson and Jethro Tull's music.
Holler just a little with their personal touch.
So here we are picking up again, but it's still really easy. And how they go back and forth between like a little bit more energy and movement, and that's usually mostly done with the guitar, and then pulling it back and pushing it forward and pulling it back, and that just, it's so interesting musically. It would be easy for a song like this to drone on and kind of become more new agey meditation relaxation music, which, don't get me wrong, I listen to a lot of that. I really like it. I listen to it to help me fall asleep at night, but obviously that's not what Jethro Tull is going for. So they kind of still keep that easy vibe, but they do a lot of pushing and pulling with it. They'll push the energy a little bit, and then pull it back. And that kind of gives your, like, it kind of tricks your brain into, just as it's about to like lull into what it thinks it's going to be, the energy picks up and it perks you up a little bit. And it's just so masterfully done.
Roots down in the wet clay, branches glistening. Roots to branches. Roots to branches, roots to branches.
And I just want to remark right here the fact that he's going from, singing roots to branches to playing, then singing, then playing, then singing and playing, and backing up, because he's already mic'd on the flute, so you don't want that flute sound to come through the mic. Now those mics are really good backing up. That's why singers, when they have those types of microphones, sing really close, because anytime you pull away from it, you don't get much sound, which is perfect. It doesn't take much of backing up for it to not get picked up in the microphone. As a flute player, and as someone who plays piccolo a lot, and I have done my fair share of songs where you have quick transitions between playing flute and piccolo, and you are quickly moving things, that's hard to do. Not so much when you're going from vocalizing to singing, from vocalizing to playing piccolo, or try that again, Katie. It's not quite as difficult when you are just singing to playing, but those fast transitions are hard, because, as I like to tell my students, the flute is very temperamental. The air, you have to have it just right on your mouth, and you have to have your embouchure just right for it to make a good, beautiful flute sound. And there are times where we spend a good chunk of our lesson just fine-tuning, where are we placing this on our face so that we get the best sound possible? Because minor adjustments in any direction, too far out, too far in, too far to the left, too far to the right, will greatly hinder the sound of the instrument. And that's not something you want live. So the fact that he's able to take it down to sing and step back and put it back up and immediately play and go back and forth like that, that's talent. That's hard to do, and to like not compromise the actual playing. So I just wanted to say, like, he makes it look easy, but doing those fast switches between playing and not only is it a lot for your brain to like switch back and forth, but to actually get the physical movements, and for, you getting it right where you need to, so that the second you blow into it, it's gonna make a beautiful sound, is tricky. So, and he does it flawlessly. And the keyboard player and the guitar player perfectly in sync there. So well done. Anytime that you have a duplicating line like that with another musician, any like hesitancy in either player and it being off a little bit, it can just take you out of the moment. It can be Like, it can just be really hard to find your groove, and it just takes you out, and it's noticeable. So them being perfectly in sync just, again, shows the musicianship between everyone and Jethro Tull, everyone on stage, not just Ian Anderson. I focus a lot on Ian Anderson because I'm a flute player, so I know a lot about it. I can talk a lot about it. I don't play guitar, I don't play bass, and I don't play keyboards, so I can't really speak too much about that. But I know when two musicians are in sync like that, it sounds so good, and it's just so beautiful, and it just like makes my ensemblist heart happy when to see it executed beautifully. So right there at the beginning of when he started playing back in, that's what I would like to call like the home register of that particular instrument. That really low sound. That's not too terribly difficult to get out on a wooden flute like that. But when you are jumping up into those upper octaves, to get those to sound as crisp and clear as he does is just... And right there, playing with the guitar, perfectly in sync, so good. That's really difficult because I feel like what's possible to do on a guitar is a little bit harder to do with a wind instrument. And I speak from my own experience when I did my cover of Time to Say Goodbye, where I had the piccolo kind of replicate what the guitar solo does. And nailing those rhythms like was really hard for me as a wind player because like of how many fingers you have to move to keep that going, whereas a guitar player, not that playing guitar is easy by any means, because there's a reason I don't play guitar. I try to learn acoustic guitar and my fingers don't move on the frets or understand chords in that way. You have a little less stuff to move, but I guess what I'm just saying is to keep a wind instrument and a guitar perfectly playing in sync, again, just shows how amazing all of the musicians on stage are. Oh, so there's so much to talk about in this last clip. I wanted to mention, of course, we have the Ian Anderson theatrics of playing on one foot. Even, I don't I was about to say at his age in this video, which he's not that old. But considering a lot of my reactions so far of Ian Anderson have been in his earlier career days, and he's obviously not as early in his career with this particular video, to see that he's still doing it, I love it. I love it. It's so cool. I also want to say, like, the fact that, I don't know, when I record, I have an external microphone. I have it sit in front of me. I don't have a microphone that actually attaches to my flute. With how small that flute is, there's not much room on the other end of the flutes. So a C flute usually comes out, I don't know, about that much away from where the actual embouchure is. So a lot of people do attach a microphone, and there's very many ways. But like his is right next to his face, and the fact that he doesn't bump it and he doesn't let that affect his playing is really, again, high musicianship right there. Because I feel like if I had a microphone that close to my mouth, I would probably be very, very aware of it. I'm sure the more that as many live performances he's done with that particular flute, I'm sure he's just gotten used to it. But I'd be like very aware of of a microphone right next to my face. So really cool there. And with that flute solo, like you could see that he had a lot of like cross fingerings where, you know, it was some here, which you don't really see that on flute. That's kind of why the C flute looks the way it does, to eliminate some of those cross fingerings. That's why there's so many keys on a C flute that do different things, so that you don't have those cross fingerings, because one, they're tricky to do, and two, they don't sound as clear because of how the air flows through it. Again, if you're interested in all of that, leave me a comment below. That's a whole video in itself about how flutes have evolved throughout the years. However, anyway, the cool thing about having a wooden flute with no keys is that you can kind of get those flutter tones that do, like, those they're not really trills, because trills tend to be really fast, but kind of like those little note flutters, those do kind of almost grace notes, appoggiaturas, kind of. They're not really that. I know that you hear it a lot in Irish music, because in Irish music, as an Irish flute player, you don't really tongue notes. You don't really articulate with your tongue the way that you would do on a C flute. So you use those dot 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 as an articulation of sort. I have taken a couple of beginner Irish flute classes, so I've learned a couple of things. But yeah, you don't really articulate with your mouth and your tongue like you would on a C flute. You kind of use those grace appoggiaturas type things as those articulations, and that is so much easier to do on a wooden flute that doesn't have keys. That's why I think the wooden flute that he used is a great choice for this song, because it allows you kind of those flexibilities to really play with not just doing a straight rhythm, but to really embellish the melody or the moving line of whatever you're playing a little bit, without really having to like add particular notes, but just kind of with how you move your fingers to give the certain effects. And that's just really, really cool. Loved it. So yeah, overall, I really liked the song. It was a really chill vibe. I love seeing more of Ian Anderson, and seeing with this wooden flute that he used is just, it was the perfect choice for the song. It really fit the vibe really well, and just again showing his talent and his knack for picking up flute like instruments is just amazing. I'm in awe of what he can do as a musician. And I will always harp about this, because as someone who did not go to music school, as someone who does not have a music degree, and I have taken lessons and I have some classical training, I, as an artist within the classical world, don't really get much recognition or have my music seen as valuable, because it's not classical music. And I know Jethro Tull and Ian Anderson has faced a lot of that in his career, of not being seen as a valid flute player, because he learned this by himself, and he does a lot of things with the flute that a lot of classical people kind of snubbed their nose at a little bit throughout the years. And now the extended techniques that he was doing in the 70s, you see in classical contemporary repertoire now. The more I watch of him, the more I am just in awe of how great of a musician he really is. All right, that's all I have for today's reaction. If you have suggestions of other reactions you'd like to do, leave them in the comments. Like I said, consider subscribing over on patreon.com or becoming a channel member here on YouTube to support my music, my content. That's it. Consider following me on all of my social media. Come find me over on twitch.tv/KatieShesko, where I stream video games. I am learning a speed run, so I'm becoming a speed runner of Breath of the Wild, and like I said, I do my music streaming over there as well. So yeah, thanks everyone so much for hanging out. I really do appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care now. Bye bye.